going on? Where's my sister going?
It's fine. She just can't take a joke.
It was just a prank, Han.
After a prank gone awry, twin sisters Beth and Hannah Washington go missing on a mountain. A year later, the group returns to the Washingtons' lodge and are accosted by a psycho killer intent on slaughtering all of them.
Weird place to hang out and smoke cigars.
It's recent. Wonder who's out there.
There isn't a lot of gameplay in Until Dawn. Most of your time spent involves walking around as various characters, observing objects for backstory and clues to the identity of the killer, conversations and dialogue trees, and of course, performing QuickTime events.
5, girl.
The major gameplay component is the butterfly effect system, where a choice earlier in the game will have a dramatic effect later on. These occur during conversations, failing or succeeding in QuickTime events, and other events like if you found certain clues. These may or may not actually affect anything based on certain other choices you make. Just for an example, if you shoot the squirrel in the beginning as Chris, it causes a bird to attack Sam, scratching her head. Later in the game, during a chase sequence, if the bird attacks Sam and she falls, she'll hit her head and cause her to bleed. Now, if Sam's head is bleeding and she attempts to hide, you'll be automatically found by the psychopath because of the blood on the ground. If you don't choose to hide, that choice hours earlier had no effect on anything. Regardless of your choices, the game will always follow the same story. The individual choices may alter how you get to that next plot point slightly, but the main plot points will always happen. In a first playthrough, you won't notice, as the strong atmosphere and characters are the reason that you play Until Dawn.
I don't think I can take any more of this.
Yeah, I'm about at my limit here too.
All I wanted to do was forget last year ever happened,
To
and
be honest, I'm not sure what Hannah thought she was doing.
yeah.
Production values are really where Until Dawn shines. The characters look extremely close to their real actor counterparts. The facial motion capture is great. It's easily one of the highlights of the game, and it's the focus. Of course, it's not perfect. There are some awkward facial expressions at some key moments that just look pretty bad, but it's more in the hilarious way. It's usually when a character is wincing in pain that just looks kinda wrong. The voice acting complements the facial animations. The conversations have good flow and feel more real than other games outside of the fact that you have to stop and make a choice sometimes. There's also great use of ambient sound. It adds a lot to the atmosphere. Whenever you're walking around outside, it always sounds eerie, and the wails you periodically hear really add to that atmosphere.
Ashley! Ashley? Anyone out there? Ashley?
I really like the main theme, but I find that the rest of the music is pretty par for the course. It's not noticeable during most moments, but it's well made and fits the tone of the game. This will be spoiler free, but I will talk in sweeping generalizations about the story. Until Dawn is in kind of an awkward position. While you're playing it, you'll roll with the punches and the story will feel pretty reasonable. The acting is good and the plot reveals will keep you interested and invested. The second you finish the game and you take a step back to think about it, you see a massive amount of plot holes and inconsistencies. Significant portions of the story seem worthless in retrospect. It would take very little in terms of rewrites to actually cover up these plot holes. But as I said, that's only in retrospect. While you're playing, it won't be a big deal. The vast majority of the characters do start off extremely unlikable. A few will win you over, but the others definitely feel like they're by design meant to be unlikable.
Jessica! Oh my god! Oh my god!
To get to an ending in Until Dawn is something that anyone will be capable of. You simply need to spend the time. Every single playable segment is extremely linear and easy to understand. You'll be led around to key things to interact by glittering lights, which makes things quick and painless in some of the larger areas. To get the perfect ending where everyone survives the horrors of the mountain is actually quite difficult. I've played through Until Dawn 4 times and haven't been able to pull off the finale successfully. There's also another choice that I just can't resist. A perfect ending is difficult because of a QuickTime event that on paper sounds easy to complete. Just hold the controller still by keeping the reticle inside the outline. This is way harder than it should be. The reticle is constantly drifting and you have to make micro adjustments to stay inside, so you can't just put it down on the table, which was my initial reaction. It feels like it has a tendency to make a dramatic shift, causing you to fail seemingly at random at times. The remaining QuickTime events through the game are standard button prompts. They can be fairly fast, which does add some intensity to some scenes. One of the problems, though, is that you can fail a huge amount of them with no repercussions. Failing some will cause characters to die, but a deceptive amount of them won't have any effect on anything.
Oh. Did I startle you? So sorry.
Until Dawn will have a playtime of about 4.5 to 6 hours, depending on how much exploration you do within the walking sections, and how many characters meet an untimely end. A few characters do have plot armor, and will act as a length baseline, but others can die, and if they do, obviously, the game adjusts to remove them from the timeline, shortening the length. The major problem with this is that while the playtime sounds short, it's actually fairly bloated. The game's introduction is really long. The first roughly 2 hours are just introducing you to the characters. Considering most horror movies are over by the time Until Dawn starts to get some momentum, it makes it really hard to get into, especially during a replay. You may want to go back and retry a choice for a different outcome because of the butterfly effect system. There is chapter select, but it uses previous choices from a saved playthrough. A fundamental choice may be in the middle of a chapter, and they vary in length quite drastically from about 15 minutes to 45 minutes. This means if you want to fundamentally change something, you have to start from the beginning of the game or trudge through a lengthy section you've already done, for a choice that in all likelihood affects nothing. Every chapter also starts with a recap of the events that previously occurred. This would be fine if you were constantly stopping for long periods of time in between chapters, but playing through in 1 or 2 sittings and being shown recaps of things you literally just saw is extremely obnoxious.
I'm trying to help you. And this game you're playing, you understand that it's not good for you. It's not good for anyone.
At Recommended Playing, games are either ascended to the pantheon of games worthy of your time with a recommendation, or are forced to wallow in the miserable muck of mediocrity with a dismissal. Until Dawn is a bit of a tough sell. The early game is just far too long-winded and dull for its own good. It does get a lot more interesting and engaging as the game progresses, but the bloated length hurts it from a replay perspective, which is one of the main draws of the butterfly effect system. It had a lot of potential to be a really fun playthrough with friends to sit and make the choices together and choose who lives and who dies, but being about 5 hours on average makes that a lot more difficult. The issue at hand is that fundamentally, watching someone else play Until Dawn is a virtually identical experience to playing it yourself. The choices presented don't have enough of a difference in outcomes to make your choices matter in the grand scheme of things. If you enjoy story-driven games and horror movies, Until Dawn will probably fit the bill and be an enjoyable experience. It has a good amount of scares, atmosphere, and some decent gore. If you manage your expectations, Until Dawn is an enjoyable playthrough. Until Dawn gets Recommended Playing's most prestigious verdict of recommended, or just watch a playthrough.
Hey.
What?
Hey.
What the hell?
Boom. You just got mucked.
Thanks for watching. If you want to hear my extended thoughts on Until Dawn, mostly the story, there will be a commentary video popping up now in the end card. If you like what's happening on Recommended Playing, please consider subscribing to the channel.